Hi, everyone. We're just letting everyone join as we are about to start the webinar. I'll start sharing my screen as well to make sure everyone can view that. We're going to let people join over the next few minutes, but we appreciate you all joining us this Wednesday afternoon. We're going to be covering a lot. So in the beginning intro, I'm sure people will be joining in the first few minutes, and I'll just do a little bit of background and introduction. And we'll be able to dive into the actual content and the meat of the presentation in a few minutes. But while people are joining, I wanted to do a quick introduction. I am Katie Gibson, the CEO of Wavelength. I'm joined by Katie, our sales manager, one of our sales managers here. Katie, you want to do a quick introduction about yourself?
Yes, hi, welcome everybody. So yes, my name is also Katie. So it is a little confusing. Luckily, we do have the different name spellings, so it should be clear when you send us those emails which Katie you're referring to. But my focus at Wavelengths is lies in the sales, marketing, and our event management. My background is I do have a Master of Education and experience in the secondary social studies world. So I've taught for a long time, and I also spent time doing sales and lead generation for another company out here in New Hampshire. My interests, although now that gardening time is waning, it's gardening, genealogy, reading, writing, and spending time with my friends and family. And my little dog Milo just shook his collar, so you might hear him in the background.
Yes, we're very dog friendly. My own dog is under my feet right now, so if you hear noises, it's them. We are excited for everyone joining us, and a little bit of my background. I do have a focus in strategic planning and a background in cognitive science with the angle of constituent engagement. Wavelength itself is a platform focused on alumni engagement with the angle of data. So how can you engage more meaningfully with alumni? And you can only do that if you have contactable and personalized information on your alumni. And how do you work on both of those planes? In the next few minutes, we are going to be really diving into the agenda as you see here, where we're going to actually have you start thinking through what engagement means for your school, what barriers you might be having to reaching those goals around engagement. And then we'll dive into that pyramid that we really want to focus on in terms of what those tiers are, how you really show and place those alumni into the various tiers, make them move forward and up into those loyalty tiers that you want. And we'll be sharing ideas from various schools and how they've done that. We'll make sure to have time for a Q&A at the end. You do have the chat feature as well, so you can always post any questions, and we'll try and reach them throughout the call as well. And just so you're aware, there is an activity sheet that we'll be sharing out at the end alongside the recording and the deck. So on the right lower hand side, there might be a little symbol showing activity. It's related to that activity sheet. There is a link that was supplied yesterday with the Zoom invite. You don't have to have it in front of you today. Our thoughts are we're going to be unpacking and giving you a lot of ideas. You probably want, a sheet of paper and pen to be jotting things down, but the sheet afterwards is going to help you try and organize those thoughts or do the activity with other team members, or even with us. That is an option after this webinar is complete. And without further ado, I will let Katie move us forward.
Thank you, Katie. So starting off, if you do have the worksheet in front of you or a pen or paper, what we want you to really think about is when we say alumni engagement, what does that mean to you personally in your role at your school? Because engagement is going to be defined differently by each one of you, and it could fit into any of these categories, some or maybe none. You know, is it philanthropic donations? Is it alumni participation in reunions? Or is it a simple open of an email or a like on a social media post? So come to a simple definition in your mind, because what is significant for you and your role at your school is really aligning what your vision or definition of alumni engagement is with that of your leadership team. So in order to be successful, everybody has to be on the same page. So we encourage you to work and come up with your own definition of alumni and share that with your leadership team. Moving on to our next activity is we really want you to think about what your school is already providing in terms of alumni engagement opportunities. We have listed a few like homecomings, newsletters, and it ranges from simple social media posts to large Giving Tuesdays or galas. So identifying those touch points and interactions that you have already with your alumni is going to be a significant step in creating more meaningful relationship and engagements with them as we move through this webinar. Another significant factor is that your alumni engagement should be measurable. We talk a lot about data in the school setting. What data are you able to collect and manage about your alumni and host that information so you are able to connect with them? Because that can lead, there's no point, there's no way to communicate effectively and engage your alumni without good data on your alumni. We thought it would be a helpful and cathartic exercise for you, and this is on your activity sheet as well, to identify the major barriers that you have experienced personally or know about when providing a complete alumni engagement program. So we have some categories here such as money, what platform you're using to engage your alumni, all the way to staffing. So just take a moment and identify those barriers that you feel are most significant in your goal of creating a better alumni community and a better way to connect with them.
And this is an opportunity just to like be thinking also, just you don't have to be writing all this down. It's just these exercises, which can be done in full at a later date, are supposed to help lead us in our discussion in a little bit around growing that pyramid and understanding really where you're coming from and state of the state to understand where your entry points and what your next steps could look like more realistically, knowing what's going on today.
We generated some ideas about what we've encountered with clients and working with schools. It's staffing. Super significant is inaccurate data about your alumni, reorganization, new hires, differing priorities within the department, poor alumni relationships that already stand with the school, no communication or not good communication between departments, funding, not enough time in your day, lack of shared knowledge with your colleagues and your leadership, incomplete historical information, and school politics.
Some of these are completely out of your control, and some might be able to be influenced with discussions with leadership as you're trying to really identify what those engagement goals are over time. But writing them out, identifying your challenges is a good and healthy exercise to understand both limitations, but also opportunities of what can change, or what are the workarounds, or what engagement options aren't impacted by some of these barriers. Something to think about is that even as you're thinking about alumni engagement and what barriers exist today, those barriers might shift down the line and in the future. I want to call out Alumni Access did some interesting research. This is for all different school types, including university. So these numbers, and we'll be sharing out this link, but it's interesting to learn about how there could be future barriers created because of current activities. One of them has to do with a do not contact or do not solicit list. There's been a noticeable rise in the number of alumni opting out of all communications from their alma maters. 46% of alumni organizations have at least 10% of their alumni opting to not have any communications. And if you think about that, that's a significant amount of potential donors lost. And those institutions that have 10% or more opt-out rate has increased by 79% since 2015. People are inundated with a lot of emails, a lot of communication, and that opt-out button is a super easy one to click for them. So I want you to keep that in mind, because when we say engagement, it's not always just total number of contacts. It doesn't mean just continuing to reach out. It's more meaningful reach out and personalization that's important. One idea around this is with the over communication, that if you have too many people that are opting out, you actually have the potential to lose out on donors that have a significant dollar value year over year. So in this example, maybe you have 3,000 alumni, 10% opt-out rate, and you have a 10% giving rate from your alumni base. That means you've lost out on 30 potential donors with an average gift of, and again, you can insert any of these statistics into this equation, but it's just to help you understand truly where you stand from a dollar value and giving or potential loss of giving. This equation can also be used when you're trying to talk with leadership. It is a simplified situation. Obviously, opting out alumni might be less engaged, so they might never have given in the first place, but it is supposed to help you in identifying, okay, you're telling me to solicit more, but historically, this has led to more opt-out rates, meaning you might have lost complete communication with a large alumni base for the rest of their lives. This is specific around young alumni too. There's been a noticeable trend of increased solicitations to young alumni. I am by no means saying don't solicit people. I am just saying do it with an intentionality and the right number of, and the right way of doing it. By that, looking at the equation, let's give an example of maybe you have a graduation size of 100 and 10% of your young alumni opted out because you had such a large number of solicitations to them. That opt-out rate means you can never communicate with them again. But if you have, again, that 10% giving rate and that $150 average gift over 55 years, like you are losing lifetime value simply because you may have over solicited or over communicated. It's not just asking for money, but if you're communicating in a way that doesn't seem relevant to alumni, then they might just opt out to say, I'm not interested in school information anymore. So there are a lot of considerations to keep in mind, and we haven't even considered one of your biggest loss in value, which has to do with inaccurate or missing data. And this is really around, okay, maybe you have 3,000 alumni, but if you only have contact information for 1,000 of them or 1,500 of them, you have completely lost this potential value of those alumni that you're not communicating with. And that doesn't mean that they've opted out of communications. It's simply that their email was lost or their phone number was an old one and it's changed. This image that you see here is the value of a data point that we have on our platform, where if you think about the number of emails you send and the number of donations you receive from those emails. So let's say you sent 100 emails out and 10 people donated. On average, if you have $100 donation from those 10 people, then the value of the data point is that each email missing is worth $10 to you. Because if you have 10 more emails in your account, you're going to get one more donor or potentially one more donor in the door. So what you really want to be thinking about is, where is your data health? How are you communicating? And then going back to engagement and donations, this is where we're going to now delve into this pyramid of, let's identify not just this large group of alumni that are in several different life stages, but let's try and break them up into various groups. Katie, I think you're muted if you're going to be taking this thing.
Yeah. So what is the solution? We've identified some ideas for you in the coming slides about how to move some of your unengaged alumni into engaged alumni. So what we suggest to you is to provide engagement opportunities outside of giving that will allow people to maintain a relationship with you. In one study, it said that schools felt least confident in just generally encouraging community amongst their alumni and more confident in soliciting donations. And that is one of the more significant contributors to eventually move your alumni into a higher donor. Meet alumni where and when they want to connect, and give your alumni reasons to give back. So like I said, we've identified at Wavelength essentially 4 categories, 5 if you want to include 2 on the bottom, of alumni. So in the following slides, we're going to introduce you to who these alumni are and how you can encourage them to move up the pyramid to become more engaged alumni. So this is live, right? Your alumni go through life changes, job changes, significant events. And so it is important to be aware that there will be changes through the lifetime of your alumni, both up and down the pyramid, and that's okay. So we're going to get started with the bottom of the pyramid, which is the either disengaged or completely unaware. These alumni, they're not interested in anything about their school. They're happy to be out. Or there's alumni who have lost contact with the school due to bad data. That would be the more unaware. Or alumni who don't feel like their school is offering meaningful engagement opportunities to them. So when in the disengaged area, we do want to encourage you to have ways for students and alumni to move from this disengaged to the next stage of our pyramid. And we are going to do that through some suggestions.
Yeah, so we have a few case studies of how schools have taken these populations and moved them forwards into the other tiers. I want to say that you are always, unfortunately, going to have a crew of alumni that are just never going to be interested. And I think kind of bucketing them almost elsewhere makes sense, because there's just a group that you have to acknowledge is not worth your time and energy, that is already very limited, to try and be engaging further and moving them along in their relationship with your school. But for those who have lost contact, whether it's because, loss of contact information, or they just have no touch points so far, there are a few ways to be able to be re-engaging with them. One is obtaining a full list of alumni. So whether that's through a CRM that already exists, through old spreadsheets, you can even extract through like digitizing yearbooks and just getting graduation years. The perk of that is that you actually have digitized content for your alumni. The next is actually finding that missing and updated contact information. There are a lot of third-party vendors that do have various enrichment services. We do as well, but what you really want to focus on if you are going down this pathway of let's just get up-to-date information on our alumni. When you are working with any vendor, you want to think through what their accuracy rates are, what expectations of the results are. Are they giving you emails? Are they giving you mailing addresses, phone numbers? And then lastly, the ownership of the data. Is the information you're giving this other company completely owned by you, or are they able to do anything with that information outside of simply giving you updated contact? This is a really valuable data service. However, I also want to call out that this is stagnant to the singular date that this information was pulled. So data is decaying at 25% each year. And if you aren't trying to maintain updated data practices, you do have the ability to lose contact or re-lose contact with alum if there isn't a way to continue to maintain better data practices. There are a lot of groups, surprisingly, that exist with or without your school's knowledge because alumni want to stay in touch with each other. There are also a lot of older lists between RSVPs to donor lists. So it's actually quite surprising to a lot of schools of truly how much data they do have. It just is unfortunately not always as clear cut or like cleanly pulled as you want it to be. So there's a lot of staff historical knowledge. There's likely some alum who are staff themselves or parents now that would be able to provide some resources and insights ongoing. Lastly, there is the crowdsourcing via volunteers. And this is where you have more loyal alumni who are higher up that pyramid, who are willing to reach out to their classmates or provide re-engagement opportunities with them that doesn't exactly rely on school contact. We had one school who was starting completely from scratch, where they went from 0 to 20,000 alumni listed out simply because they were able to digitize their yearbooks, enrich those profiles with the data enrichment services. And then as they were doing this work and there was word of mouth spread that this was happening, there was all of a sudden this discovery of several class years having private Facebook groups that existed. And because they were showing, the school was showing alumni engagement opportunities outside of fundraising, the Facebook admin were willing to post and spread awareness about engagement opportunities. And it actually led to a serious increase in alumni directory. And actually through those Facebook groups, it was uncovered that there was a 600-person list of alumni that was just like a informal alumni directory that existed in the first place. So again, information exists out there on your alum. It's just trying to find it that takes a little bit of legwork. We have also worked with schools who have used parents as a volunteer tool. There are a lot of parents that you have strong relationships with that really value the community and are willing to be able to support their child ongoing if they see that you as a school are wanting to support the alum, even though they no longer grace your actual like physical hallways. So one school asked parents of young alumni to update and stay in touch with the school. And actually they helped to organize some from college. They did some holiday gatherings for the young alumni when they were back from their freshman year of school. And we're trying to maintain the data that way of, a young alum is graduating, going to college, having their first career, moving forward that way, and they're constant changes. So if you're able to stick with someone who is more solidly capable of having communication with you and the parents are willing to provide better data, that's also really useful. So that's the lost contact space. You've got then the disengaged. So you have their contact, but they're not that interested because maybe what's been offered hasn't been relevant to them. What you want to do is start to offer more variety. With the world we're in today, people are moving away from their hometowns and reliant on technology a lot more. So when you're thinking of new engagement, think of online solutions. Are there also hotspots of alumni gatherings that aren't local to your school? And then also offering more of a variety around the communications and content you're providing. We had one school who chose to launch the platform just because they wanted an online presence. And they chose not to go with donations to start because they didn't want people to think that we're only doing this for solicitation purposes. They also didn't have that passive update data form on their website anymore, because if you think about it, you're in the middle of the move. The last thing you're going to do is update your alma mater. What you're really trying to think through is all of the, where are the bills being sent to, and, moving, packing, all of that. So what they did by launching an online portal like Wavelength is within 3 weeks, they had more data updates from their alumni than they had in the combined 4 years beforehand. And that's all because it's providing a solution of online engagement for alumni. So those were those 3 sections. Katie, you want to take the sporadic definition?
Yeah. So the next kind of cohort of alumni we've identified is the sporadic groups. So as the word suggests, these are inconsistent alumni who will occasionally participate, donate, or interact. And will maybe attend a 5th-year reunion, maybe be persuaded if a classmate is encouraging them, sees things online but scrolls past. And what's really key here, and what Katie mentioned, is the opportunity that you have for personalization in alumni interactions and engagement. So, really finding ways to get feedback from your alumni about what they would like to see, how they would like to interact with each other, and really personalizing it for them is going to be a key way to move the sporadic alumni up the pyramid.
That's a really great point, Katie, because what you can actually do is look at your previous attendance rates, email open rates, by just looking at like the subject lines that you're sending out. Is there a change in email open rates simply because of the content you're providing? You want to start to understand what is the most compelling for the largest amount of your alumni base. For example, as you're trying to start or enhance your newsletter, developing sections that are relevant to a wider audience. A quick and easy rule of thumb I sometimes suggest is, do you have like past, present, and future content of the nostalgia for alumni to remember the good old days, hear success of the current school so they're more willing to potentially donate, and also be thrilled about where future growth is happening at the school so that they see you continuing to have that vision and deliver a great experience to future students. You also want to acknowledge the variety of alumni. I know I mentioned this before, like with the life stages being so different, a young alum in college is very different than your 70-year-old retiree. So trying to see where your audience and target audience is, or who you really think the content is geared to, is important to consider. We've actually encouraged a lot of class note collection as a feature where you can actually have classmates submitting image and text updates about themselves. People are really interested in hearing about how Matthew from math class is doing, or what like their best friend is up to, or their former best friend is up to, especially for those who might not have stayed as close touch with their classmates. If you look at average email open rates in the education sector, it's about 25 to 28%. What we've been seeing through a more personalized outreach approach and more targeted like class notes and personalized updates is we're seeing open rates of between 50 and 70%, because it's also healthier data. So it's up-to-date information, and you're really working towards that goal of what is the content that my alum and community wants to see.
So here we are at the committed level of our pyramid, and your committed alumni are waiting for you to for opportunities to interact and engage with the alumni community. They just need you to provide it to them, and they need to receive the information again from the have the accurate data to receive the information. They are regularly opening the marketing communications, they attend the offered events, and they give regularly. And they would gather with alumni in their local area if offered. So we really see this group as the group that's just waiting for you to engage with them, and possibly you could be possibly missing out on your committed level by not offering, again, personalized events, local events, and really soliciting their feedback about what they'd like to see.
Exactly. We're really wanting to focus on with the committed alumni is that you're adding more touch points, allowing even for some self-sufficient activity. I know that we all have way too much on our plates right now. Like, it's really hard to just add more engagement opportunities because it adds work to your day-to-day schedule. So are there ways to be able to remove or never add more, but can you actually empower your alumni to feel engaged with each other, with the school, without you actually having to lift much of a finger? So we had one school who launched group tags around sports, where they did an email out having a confirm your data. Every year we encourage schools to do that because, again, the data is shifting, and added the act of, can you also add which group tags, like which sports you were a part of? Because what they wanted to do is continue to have coaches send out email updates about how the season has been going to that specific sport and that alumni base. It's expanding even further to be doing, some swim team efforts and actually having alumni come back for swim meets to swim against each other, to fundraising for specific materials within the sports. And what's really exciting about that is it's continuing to personalize the experience of that alum, being seen that not only was I just a student at the school, but what my interests were. So it could go well beyond sports. That's the easy example. But we have another school that has like field days where it's two different colors, like blue white day, and you can actually have those tags so people identify with some of the core things they remember from their day to day. We also had some schools launch a job and mentoring community where through this volunteer program, people could self-select into saying, hey, I'm willing to volunteer and be contacted to be a mentor, or have mentees be able to search for each other from the platform. Alternatively, the school also asked older alumni saying, hey, we really want to support young alumni on their career path. Do you, as established individuals, have job opportunities within your company or locally that you'd be willing to post? And this allows these committed alum to feel like they're giving back to the community. They also feel targeted because of where they are in their life stage. And then the young alumni feel supported because it's targeted to them as well, be it the mentoring program or the job board. So all this is to say that all you needed to do, or all this school rather needed to do, was set up toggle the feature on, set up the expectations, and have a few jobs posted to start, and that one email communication out to the older alumni and one to the younger. And then it's this self-sustaining process so that, again, people feel connected even when you aren't having to do much to maintain the program.
Yeah, and that is, I think, the key point when you eventually move your alumni into the loyal category, is that when you have a thriving alumni community, your alumni are going to do a lot of the work for you already in terms of community building, setting up events, connecting with their fellow alumni. And we really want to see, obviously, the goal would be for everybody to be in this category, or most alumni who are volunteers. They sit on an alumni association board. They're eager to support. They donate annually, and they're happy to solicit donations on behalf of the school. And that is really, when you reach that point, the growth for your alumni community is exponential once we reach loyal.
Absolutely. We actually had one organization that mobilized that really focused on volunteer-led donation requests from classmates. And the first year mobilizing, they had tens of thousands of dollar donations just because it was using alumni and classmates to be able to reach out and say, hey Doug, hope you're doing well. Like, I loved our past experience here. The school's doing so well with XYZ initiative. Do you mind donating? And that personal, those memories, that is again a really successful tool of how to not only empower loyal volunteers to feel like they're giving back, but also increase donations. Something to keep in mind here, and back to the data, is data privacy and also how you track all of this. When you're sending out spreadsheets of please solicit these people, you never know who's got the most up-to-date spreadsheet and list of who has and hasn't given. We do have volunteer tools on the platform that give live time results of like who has and hasn't given to volunteers. And we also make sure to have them not see the donor value and dollar value of giving. We also really encourage in this case that volunteers also thank their classmates. It's not just the ask itself, it's also celebrating the wins afterwards and really following through full circle. Another school example in this loyal area is the concept of sub-communities that, everyone's identified with the school or the sport, but there's also additional communities within your organization. So there are a few schools that have identified large alumni factions within select colleges. They're actually operating local groups within those college sections that allow alumni of both the high school and the college to be supporting the new young alumni who are in college today. And so it's led by volunteers who are overseeing these sub-communities with outreach, with content. And it's really that, again, uber localized experience and relationship that allows alum to really feel connected with the school, but empowers them to do more. I want to also recognize that some people are not meant to be volunteers. We know managing volunteers can be challenging. We've done a separate webinar around volunteers. I'm happy to send out information around that if anyone asks. But you really want to identify the right people. Even though you might have super loyal donors, not everyone fits the profile of those that you would trust to be able to lead in outreach. So I always want to caveat everything with an understanding of it's not a one size fits all, but this is an ultimate goal of getting a large population into this space.
So, what we really want to emphasize to you and what we've seen be done successfully with clients of Wavelength is moving your alumni up this pyramid. It is not difficult to do this. With the key, information and case studies we've shared, and will be shared out later. We really want you to feel empowered to make really deliberate changes in the way you engage with your alumni in order to move them up this pyramid. And all of these case studies that Katie has referred to are success stories with the Wavelength platform. This is our goal, is to help support you in moving your alumni up the pyramid. But we hope that the case studies and information we shared today will empower you to, make changes even tomorrow.
Exactly.
So on your activity sheet, you do have the opportunity to go through and identify what solutions you're offering for each specific alumni on the pyramid, so that you can be more, like I said, deliberate and specific with your outreach efforts and your community building.
If you remember the activities we started this whole thing with, or like the thoughts we had you consider, all of those activities you have listed out, you can place where they probably address what type of alumni they address. Is it an email, which could be like sporadic, committed, loyal, or is it an event that's really for those loyal donors? All of those engagement points you can actually categorize into the pyramid itself. And what we're hoping you can do with this follow-up is identify not only where do you have opportunities and engagement that you offer today? Where are those holes? What are the barriers to trying to plug those holes? And thinking through some of the examples we shared, is there any low-hanging fruit that you can have and offer to your alumni to be able to really bolster your own pyramid to move it to the next step? So I know that we've got about 5 minutes left, so we want to really offer the time. This is the quick visual of the activity sheet that will be shared out, but I wanted to offer some time for Q&A. And I know we've been talking at you for a while now. There is a chat feature and Q&A section that you can submit any questions if you have any. And Katie, you can monitor and feel free to take any or ask me
Sure.
that.
So why would a platform like Wavelength, an alumni engagement platform, work better than a homegrown channel or like a social media, like a Facebook?
So that's a good question. So from a social standpoint, social media, if you look at all of everything that's going on between Twitter, which is now X, and then Facebook that tried to launch the metaverse that's completely failing, to be honest. There's all of this infighting for social media spots, and it's got a lot of distractions to it. So yes, it's successful for the point of like people are already there, but you're fighting for space. So what we recommend is, can you provide a private spot to allow alumni when they're ready to engage with the school or with each other? Is it a career initiative? Is it trying to, mobilize for reunions? They're there for a reason and really have full attention at your school. And that's why we recommend having a separate platform rather than just offering social media. I think there's a great combination of the two, but I think being able to offer a no distractions, fully school supported site is probably the better approach from an engagement standpoint.
What tier should schools prioritize solicitation or communication with?
Okay, I'm going to go back to, let's see if it's going to let me go back to, okay, so from a tiers perspective, you have to acknowledge that there are going to be alumni that fit into each one of these. Ultimately, I think when we say engagement, a lot of times bottom line money is going to be the one that people focus on, and I completely understand that. I think it's an understanding that you can actually move the sporadic and committed forward into that loyal section simply because you're offering a little bit more engagement. I think it depends on if you're starting off a program from scratch to being a little bit more established, but I'm wishy-washy in my answer here because I think it really depends. If you had to put like a percentage down of 40% sits in the unaware category while I have 20% in committed, that's really great to have 20% in committed. I'd be working on trying to move the unaware into the sporadic space. But if I would just say, do percentages of where your alumni fit and which one's the glaringly different one to try and focus your energy.
Do you want one more question or do you want to move?
I would let's do one more question and then yeah, if there is one, but
what in terms of tracking engagement, how would you recommend schools use like the top metrics? So are there top metrics you'd recommend schools use?
So the top metrics, I would say that metrics really depend on what platforms you're using, between your email systems to your text messaging to I think bottom line, what you want to do is get a state of the state of how many emails you have, and when you send an email out, how many bounce backs. So true number of that. I think what you then easy metrics that most platforms, if not all, will offer from an email standpoint is just like open rates, click-through rates. So that'll help with newsletters, RSVPs and everything. What you really want to understand is even if you have a low RSVP rate, it might be because you just don't have a large population that are local too. So it's really trying to get the metrics that you already can track today with the platforms you have. I wouldn't try and like buy into new metric tracking until you're taking advantage of what already exists.
And we got one more.
Okay.
Can we solicit the alumni address, email, and phone number information through the Wavelength platform, or is it something that schools need to do outside of the platform?
So we have the email features set up on our platform, so you can be targeting everyone or subgroups and personalized mail merge and all of that. The physical addresses are updatable by alumni on our platform and through our data enrichment services, but you'd need to like take that off if you were going to do a mailing campaign. And then right now, we don't offer texting services, but we do have some recommendations that are just based off of use case rather than needing to buy into a full platform. And it's just when you need to use them. So I can directly email you all with some of those suggestions as well.
Yeah, and there have been schools, and I'm not sure if this goes to the answer of this question, where we've digitized their yearbooks for them. And we have gone out and done a lot of the searching for the data, which is an option for us to talk through if you're interested in our platform, is how much we can do on our end to assist you to get that data.
Yes, sorry if I incorrectly answered that. Yes, we do find all of that information. It's just how you use it both on our platform and off, as well as having alumni and volunteers be able to flag updates or change your own information. So yes to all of that, we find it. It's a hybrid of whether we support outreach from our platform, which is a yes, but it's not all through all channels. I know we are a little over time. Thank you all so much. We would be more than happy to go through this pyramid that is specifically personalized to you all if you want, or we can do strategic planning one-on-one. We can also do an overview of Wavelength. As we introduced Katie at the beginning of this call, she is one of our sales managers, so you can easily set up time with her or schedule time, but we really appreciate everyone this Wednesday afternoon joining us today.